GM, trade of the day. So what I'm going to do is run through my mindset with the alts I exited yesterday. So I closed Fetch, which was just a short-term trade. I closed Layer AI, same thing. And I closed half of Pepe. So I talked about this on the daily lesson yesterday, that as soon as you exit, you think much more clearly and you say to yourself, would I get back in? So I'm going to run through my mindset with these positions here. I closed Fetch around here when, to my mind, it had come up, found resistance, pushed higher, swept that out back below. We'd seen higher selling, indicating to me that this is probably an FTR, failure to return. We've got a high, price fails, basically a lower high, and then we push back down for more consolidation. I think Fetch overall looks fine, right? Looks very good. SR flip. Quite often though, when you've had a lengthy uptrend like we've had, and you see this SR flip, let's say just from this top here, and it doesn't quite touch it, right? So we had the support resistance level here. We broke out from it and then pushed away. Came back for retest, didn't retest it. Rallied all the way up back into resistance. I've seen these very, very, very often where people just get themselves super long at the highs because it looks really good, and then it just ends up all the way back down into the lows, reaccumulates, and away it goes. Yeah, like this is how lower high bounces form. It's very rare to set a high, sell off, come back up, especially leaving a gap behind, and to just rip and actually go high. That's like so uncommon, because that is giving people a free ride, right? Now, of course, it can happen, but generally, if something like that's going to happen, it's going to happen much lower when the market is in more of a state of disbelief, right? Where you have a move up and then you have your sort of second test, but price keeps going up and breaks out after. Like even here, for example, here's a level. You had a high, came up, lower high, sold off, swept it out, back below, all the way back down to fill the gap, and then away it goes. And that was even back before the market was truly bullish. That was still when the market was in a bit of disbelief. So I would expect Fetch to, if it takes the highs, sweep them out, come back down, fill the gap, and then run again after, or even come down to retest this level. I don't know. And the reason I say this is because as I wake up this morning, Fetch looks really good. Right? That's now holding up and people are like, wow, it looked really bad here few 2 4 hour candles ago. Now it looks amazing. It looks like it's holding and building a base below resistance. And yeah, I don't get psyoped by those. Doesn't mean I'm never wrong, but it's very, 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 very likely that this leads to at least a quick flush back into the bands, up, down into the bands, and from there, Fetch can break out. So the reason I sold is because we're at resistance, and I have no problem getting it back in lower if the setup presents. And of course, if it doesn't, if it breaks out, I don't really mind either, because Fetch isn't, it's not like super high conviction long-term trade or anything. It's just a trade. And the goal of trading, of course, is to what? Make money. So that's what I did. Layer AI. This one is, well, there's a few places you can look at it. GPT, LAI. So, and then I noticed on BitGet, there's just been some heavy buying. There's a spike here on BitGet. So to me, that's kind of interesting. There was a wick up on BitGet, but not on other exchanges. Don't know if that's how much relevance that has. I guess I could dive in. So look at this. Look at the difference of this. That spike on BitGet, this is Bybit. No spike, right? Doesn't take the highs. KuCoin, same thing. Now KuCoin volume 60,000. These big spikes, 650,000. right? Compared to BitGet, which just had 280,000, 180. Yeah, so BitGet's it's not actually very liquid. Even though the chart looks worse on KuCoin, the volume's actually much lower on BitGet, even with this push. But still, this was, let's say from this push, 280, 229, 140. So that's what? That's about 600, 750. Then some selling coming in, 850, maybe close to a million LAI in this area here, which is about 10,000, right? If it's 1 cent, well, if it's, let's say it's 1.5 cents, so it's about $15,000 to buy a million of them. So that's not really. Someone basically has been buying 15K worth on BitGet specifically, because you can see that it doesn't move on Bybit or KuCoin in anywhere near the same way. And I'll check the Bybit spot pair as well. Yeah, not much change there. And you'll see here that the Bybit spot pair is far more liquid. If you look on the top left where volume is, there's 222 in this one, right? So without any big spikes of volume, there's hundreds of thousands of tokens being traded. So not sure if that means much. This is sort of a decent bottoming pattern. If you look here on Bybit, maybe is there a 5-minute box that's forming or anything like that? This is not too bad, right? It's faked out a couple of times, above, below, above, below. So I'm sure if it can hold and stay in this area, it's probably ready to push up short term. But as a short term trade, maybe decent. But for me to get back into my other position that I was looking at, I would like to see a bit more from it. So I think I had it on over here. Yeah, that's what I want to see. I want to see it do what it did here, right? Break the downtrend line, which it hasn't done yet. It has held the 100 EMA nicely as well in the 4-hour. But get back above. Get back above this swing high and then buy some sort of pullback. And I'd be keen. I'd be okay to get back in then if the opportunity presented it. And finally, Pepe. Let's see what the re-entry would look like for Pepe. So Pepe to me is fine. It's just weak. But weak doesn't mean that it's going to go much lower. You can see there's a lot of demand for Pepe on these wicks, right? These wicks are getting bought up. And even with all the, right, so this wick got bought up and with all the selling, made a higher low. With all there's been no demand for Pepe here, but it's still making a higher low. So I think Pepe is actually holding up fine. It done the same thing over here, right? It just chopped around and chopped around and chopped around and chopped around. Eventually it went. Now back over here, it did take the lows before it eventually moved. And that's probably what Pepe's trying to do here. But we're starting to lose the 4-hour trend, right? Which it has done over here previously, but we're now below the 200. So you want to see it really reclaim the 200 if there's going to be any immediate movement. So again, I'll be watching Pepe to show some strength and show a 200 EMA reclaim. And ideally, it sweeps. I think it's trying to sweep these stops before it can do that, but maybe it won't. In any case, you want to see it get back above. The bands are going to start compressing here, which is fine, especially if price compresses, right, and the bands compress, and then you get it breaking out, that's fine. If it does that and eventually starts to break out, well, that's going to set up a big rip. So Pepe is just, it seems to be just repeating the same pattern over. But again, opportunity cost, right? I sold last night, I don't know, over here somewhere, wherever. And I'm more than happy to get back in here. Yeah, I have no problem getting back in here if it's starting to show signs of moving up. But of course, I still have half the position. I don't want to close my whole position out. I still think January is going to be good for both Pepes. So, that's it, GM. Fetch, Layer AI Pepe. just an insight into when I would consider re-entering positions. That's really what this trade of the day is about. GM, GM, GM. See you all later.